Welcome to Haunt Weekly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And this is Haunt Weekly, a weekly podcast for the haunted attraction and haunted entertainment community. Whether you're an actor, owner, or just plain aficionado, we aim to be a podcast for you. Mm-hmm. And we return to you not live this week.
Right.
We've been having, we'll get into it in just a little bit, but we're having discussions about how we're going to do live podcasts and when we're going to do them. And we got some thoughts on that, so stay tuned. We are looking forward to doing more live stuff, though.
Yeah.
But not this week.
No.
This week we're yelling into a recorder in my office, as we do on these weeks. But anyways, thank you very, very much for joining us this week. I hope that this is a funny episode.
I hope so.
I hope so. But no, so in all seriousness, definitely take a moment, if you cannot, grab more Haunt Weekly. Follow us at the places we are at. That includes hauntweekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Twitter, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, youtube.com/Haunt Weekly is our YouTube channel. The easiest way to access pretty much every episode, though that actually isn't as true anymore, as the new website pretty much lays it all out for you too. Mm-hmm. But anyway, neither here nor there. You can also get us wherever you find your podcasts. And keep your calendars open, because some Sundays at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will be doing live recordings over the next few weeks or so.
Yeah.
Got a lot to talk about there. All right. Well, first things first, before we get into our housekeeping stuff, because I completely fluffed the order in the notes.
Yeah.
I meant to do housekeeping first and screwed it up, but let's just go with what we got.
Okay.
And to do the question of the week. 2 weeks ago.
Right.
The question
2
of the
weeks
week.
ago. Last week we had on wonderful guests.
Yes, we had Japes and Katie. Dear God.
Yeah.
Words, Jonathan. They make sounds. They have meaning.
Yeah.
Anyways, and it was wonderful. I highly encourage you, if you have not done so, go check out that episode. Mm-hmm. It is a wonderful episode, as they dropped a lot of knowledge about being a traveling actor. And right. Changed the way I thought about it a lot, actually. I feel like I understand a little better now.
Yeah, I do too. And also, if you're going to MHC, be sure to check out their panel.
Yeah, that's going to be a wild goddamn panel. I'm going to tell you that much right now. Just taters on it.
Uh-huh.
Woo dog.
Yeah, there are a lot of people.
There's a lot of characters on that panel. How about that?
Well, that's the whole point, isn't it? Aren't we all just characters at some point?
They're calling it the Avengers, and they're not wrong. They're likening it to the Avengers, and they're not wrong.
Yeah.
But anyways, 2 weeks ago, we asked the question of the week. What would you change about the haunt industry if you could? We were listing things we wanted to change. Mm-hmm. And so what would you guys change if you could wave a wand and do it? Crystal.
Okay, Sam Verrill said industry mentorship educational programs, large haunts would help teach up-and-coming haunt owners.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I also don't think it will ever happen, unfortunately. It's a great idea. Mm-hmm. And it would be very, very good for the haunted attraction industry.
Yeah.
But I think the reason we're not going to see it is, even though a lot of that attitude of other haunters as our competition has faded, and especially in like the last decade or so, or last 20 years or so, there's still some of that there. And it's like everyone's still finding their balance for how much they want to help new haunters. And, it's one thing to post on forums or Facebook groups how to build X prop or how to design XYZ, or even do talks at like HauntCon, Trans World, MHC, and so forth. These things. But it's another to actively mentor people, especially in your area.
Unless maybe you made like a franchise type thing where you mentored under someone in order to build a secondary haunt for them.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Like something like 13th Floor could theoretically do that.
Yeah, and others.
Yeah, and other chain groups. Basically, the big haunt chain groups.
Yeah.
That was the one that popped in my head immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see that. So then maybe there is a way to make it work. I would love to see it, but I think it's a great idea. I just don't know how likely. Mm-hmm. Belfontaine said, more year-round jobs and opportunities. I agree. This would be wonderful. It is so sad how few people make haunting their occupation.
Well, how few can.
Now, if you can, are able to. Yeah, that's what I meant. If you are able to. Even people who run very, very, very successful haunts that get massive crowds and generate tons of revenue still have second and third jobs.
Lots of times, that's very true.
Like, and that's just it. And it's like, even like some of the haunts I know that have full-time people, like 13th Gate, they have side hustles, not just in the form of escape rooms, but also in the form of being sets for movies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They have side hustles to make that work. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't work for them. So, yeah, I agree. But I think if we're going to get more year-round jobs, we need more year-round haunts.
Right.
I think that's the issue here.
Chicken and an egg problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Next up.
Right. Brian Barnes said more emphasis on home haunting.
Yeah. This is a good idea. This is a really good point.
I seem to, like, it feels like there were more opportunities for home haunters when I was younger than now. And I think that a lot of that comes down to city regulation.
Yeah. And I remember we had an interesting conversation. We were at a graduation party.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were there for this. Yeah, you were. Because we were mingling. We were doing our stuff. But anyways, we found out we run the haunted house in the neighborhood right now.
Yeah.
And then these old timers who had been in the neighborhood apparently since it was built, pretty much in the 60s, were recanting or recalling all the haunts that were around and ain't there no more.
Right.
And how we're the only major home haunt in probably several miles.
Yeah. I'm struggling to think of any in the city.
Yeah.
I know there's one down in Belchase. But...
And we have like the skeleton house and things like that.
Right. We have large displays.
Yeah, but not home haunts.
Not things people actually go through.
And I would love, because one of the things I've always wanted to do with our haunt is print a map or a card or something.
Yeah.
Hey, you liked us. Here's a bunch of other cool places to check out.
Yeah. And
that way, especially for people who come on the first 2 nights, give them, help pass the traffic around. Maybe work with these home haunters to, cycle and get people, get more visits. The problem is there just aren't enough home haunters. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be a very, very, very small card. It'd be very blank.
Well, I mean, and that's something that we may want to talk to the people who put on the Mardi Gras house floats, because they started that in a year.
Yeah,
that was a. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
And they had a map of every place that was going to do it.
That was crazy how fast that took off.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Because it went from just not being a thing in the city, not realistically. Maybe a couple houses did it, but no one ever thought about it like an organized thing.
Yeah, no.
And then this year we literally had 5 or 6 of them in our neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Organized on a website. Very well done.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Gay, final one for right now, says a major trade show in the Northeast. That is weird to think that there is not a major haunted attraction trade show in the Northeast. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, my brain always thinks, well, there's Ohio ones, but that's more. Yeah, that's not the Northeast. No, Jonathan, that's not. You're thinking wrong.
It's north from you.
Well, yes, compared to New Orleans, that is both north and east.
Is it?
I think it's slightly east.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I didn't do well in geography.
Yeah, I didn't have to take it.
So you didn't do well in it either. You just didn't do it.
Exactly.
But no, I do think that's very interesting. And his reasoning is he much prefers doing cash and carry type stuff rather than having to pay insane amounts of money for shipping. And I agree. You rent a U-Haul if you don't have a big truck. Go to one of these things and... Yeah,
well, I think a convention targeted at that middle tier haunt would be awesome. That was cash and carry, But.
Now, one thing I will say, and I do not mean this like to be a dig at anyone, but if you see a need for an event like an event in this industry, just start it.
Yeah,
it's surprisingly not that difficult to launch a conference or a convention of some stripe. It's surprisingly not that hard.
Okay. So there's a lot of work that goes into planning events.
Yeah, there is a lot of work. And it's not...
It depends on how big... Like, if you're talking about a bar crawl or a pub meetup, well, that's one thing.
That's just it. I would start very small.
Yeah.
I would start small and then tack on and grow, because it's just like building a haunt in that regard. You start small, you build, you grow, you expand, you improve year after year after year, and eventually, after not that long, you can have a pretty major convention on your hands in the span of a few years, depending on how fast you grow. But yeah, I mean, start small, don't overload yourself, and allow yourself to learn. But it's surprisingly not that difficult to get an event off the ground, especially if you, like you said, start reasonable.
Yeah, and if you are going to start bigger than reasonable, then hire someone.
Yeah, hire people
who can plan the event.
Yeah, and then
that's done it before.
And the problem is that going bigger is going to be both. You need more expertise and more money.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, but you can start a small conference or convention for very little money, with very little work into it, and no expertise, no experience. So yeah, I encourage you, if you see a need for an event in your area, look at creating it. It's not as unattainable as it seems. I know when I go to, like, a conference or something, I often think, wow, this is amazing. They put this together. I don't know. I go to South by Southwest, for example. I think that's just voodoo shit that comes together at all.
That's a very stressed event planner. Yeah. That is what that is.
But
I may have some experience with this.
But my advice is, we both have done event planning at various points. So yeah, start small, but don't overtax yourself. But that brings us to this week's question of the week, which is, what is your funniest memory inside a haunt, either as an actor or a customer? I'm curious to find out, and let us know your answer. We'll post it on our Facebook page, facebook.com/hauntweekly. We'll be sharing it on Twitter, twitter.com/hauntweekly. Let us know. You can also contact us via the website, though not by the nice, easy contact form right now, but we're working on this.
Yeah.
And basically, reach out to us and let us know your answer. Okay, so now we have a little bit of housekeeping.
Yes.
If you went back and listened to the special announcement I did, and it should still be up, you already kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
But we have a brand new website, hauntweekly.com, and it is not the website we wanted.
No.
To be 100% clear.
And it doesn't have all the features and things that we had on the previous one.
No, it does not. And the reason is, and I'll just recap it as quickly as I can, our previous host, a company called Fireside.fm, basically fired us as customers. They said we were using too much bandwidth, even though we were way under the amount of downloads they had advertised at us.
Yeah.
And realistically, there's no way we were using the bandwidth we were accused of, because, I mean, these MP3s are only 30 megs. We know the download count. Nothing adds up. Yeah. And the worst part is they only gave us 14 days to do the move. And moving a podcast is much trickier than moving a lot of other websites.
Right.
It's not as simple as set up a clone of it and move it. You've got to update feeds. You've got to make sure that your listeners transition to the new service. You've got to get all those old episodes, which for us is a fuck ton, 330 plus, downloaded. It takes time to do these things. Luckily, the transition process was smooth, and we've got our temporary home right now. And we're not going to be in any rush to upgrade it, because we've got a vacation coming up. We've got things happening in our life where we really can't, take on this project right now. And this is really terrible timing for us in every way possible. So yeah, we're still debating what our long-term home will be. We're taking suggestions, especially from other podcasters. But in the meantime, just let us know if you have any problems. And thank you all for your help and patience. I put the call out. And yes, people have been letting us know the transition was going smooth. And a couple people found some issues that we were able to investigate and look into. And so, yeah.
Yes, so thank you for reaching out to us at all the Haunt Weekly places.
Yes, you know where to find us. But yeah, so I'm still miffed about this, and I'm going to be miffed for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I really wish... Because, I mean, the instinct for me is always just set up a WordPress site.
Yeah.
And be on WordPress. Because I've worked in WordPress now for over 17 years.
Yeah. I
know WordPress. I'm very, very good at it. Mm-hmm. But the WordPress, because that's what we do with the Haunt Weekly store. It's WordPress plus WooCommerce. But, yeah, the podcast WordPress connection is terrible.
Yeah.
It is just god-awful. I mean, it's really sad. So that's why I'm taking suggestions. All right, so let's get to the topic du jour, the main feast of the day, and that is comedy in haunting. And I know going into this is going to get some eye rolls.
Yeah. Well, and this is like more controversial of a topic than it has any business being.
Yeah, I agree. It's like we've mentioned this to a few haunters over the years, and we always get this weird look like, why the fuck would you want to do that? What's wrong with you? That's stupid. Well, the only clowns we make are scary, pal. Stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, well, you're missing out, dude. you're screwing it up. But I mean, okay, and I get a little bit of the problem in terms of why a lot of haunters don't want to look into it. I mean, the point of a haunted house is to scare people, not make them laugh. Mm-hmm. And that's not entirely wrong. I mean, it does seem very, very counter to what a haunted attraction is supposed to be. We're trying to scare people and trying to specifically scare them that perfect amount where they're terrified but still having fun. Mm-hmm. Trying to hit that sweet spot. Yeah. Where we give them good, safe, clean endorphins and they have a good time, right? They get their little adrenaline jump and they're happy about it. And that's what we're trying to do. So, yeah, why would we want to make people laugh if the focus is to scare them? Mm-hmm. And the first point I want to make is that our purpose as a haunted attraction is not to scare people. It's to entertain people. Mm-hmm. We are in the entertainment business. Fear is a tool we use for entertainment. Right. We're like a roller coaster in that regard. Mm-hmm. And I love me a good roller coaster. Yeah. But yeah, we're basically roller coasters with humans instead of tracks. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but the point is to entertain people. And to quote John LaFlamboy, because I'm getting it right this time. I keep crediting it to Japes, even though Japes told it to me. He got it from John. Yeah. So now I can finally get it right on an episode for the first time in the history of this podcast. I'm getting it right. Damn it. Just this once. I'll probably go back next time this comes up. But the quote basically is that we cannot scare everyone, but we can entertain everyone. Right. And I love that quote and I love that approach because if you can entertain people, regardless of whether or not they got actively scared, you still win. Mm-hmm. You still gave them their money's worth. Yeah. And we need multiple tools in our toolbox to scare people eventually. Yeah. And to entertain them. Yeah, and entertain people. Because basically, if you're ignoring comedy as a potential tool, you're hitting just one arrow. You've got one arrow in that quiver. It's scare, 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 scare. Now, you got a variety of different types of scares, obviously, but that's all you're doing. Yeah. Is scaring. Comedy gives us another way to entertain people and it's another tool that we can use, and it can really, really help. Because in addition to being entertaining, it also makes people easier to scare. Because here's the thing, like, people become desensitized over time. Yeah. You go through a haunt and it's attack, 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 attack. Eventually, you just kind of become numb to it. Mm-hmm. And even the scary, oh yeah, I'm scary, the scariest people going through a haunt, will get numb to it. Because your adrenaline, those endorphins again, can only hit, there's a ceiling. Mm-hmm. And you try to go past that, you're not going to make any progress. You can't push beyond it. You need to give people a chance to come down a little bit, so that way you can cause another spike. And so, yeah, this is comedy is a powerful tool to get people to lower their shields. It's hard to be on edge and looking for the next scare when you are laughing. Yeah, exactly. And actually, I want to go beyond that. If you're actively laughing and overtaken by that emotion, it's actually impossible, pretty much. Yeah. It's the old adage of, if you get pulled over, try to make the cop laugh. Because A, he's going to feel safer, he's going to like you more, and might get out of the ticket. Or at the very least, it breaks the tension, of a very, very otherwise tense situation. That was your dad's strategy. Yeah. Yeah. Work for him. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not my knee-jerk reaction with cops. No, it isn't. It used to be. Once upon a time, I could claim that about me. Yeah. But no, I can't anymore, really. So, yeah, basically, though, this is a great way to make your haunt very unpredictable. And the more unpredictable your haunt is, the harder the scares hit. Because when people are able to predict scares, they don't get scared by them as much.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah. And comedy acts can be a great distract.
Oh, yeah.
Something really funny going on that you're watching.
You know,
I'm not going to see that person coming from the side or behind.
Or, God help me, that tree that moves into the world.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch, that was well placed.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. But yeah, no. Another thing to think about is that this is memorable because these are moments that stand out.
Right.
They are very memorable moments. Comedy moments are super easy to remember. I mean, we can remember humorous characters and scenes from we went to over a decade ago. That's not an exaggeration.
No.
I may not remember a single scare that happened at that haunt that year I was there. But if something made me laugh, that is right into the memory bank and is a positive, fun memory, and it makes me want to go back to the haunt.
Exactly. I mean, there was one year that we went to a haunt that had a bird and fox character, and they were doing this comedy bit, and it was great.
Oh, it was hilarious. Yeah, they were placing dynamite. It was and it was just, it was such beautiful writing. Whoever wrote that needs a fucking award of some stripe. It was
awesome, and we were so looking forward to going back and singing them the next year, and they weren't there.
They weren't there. They got rid of them, and now we found out why later. But because they
but we
didn't
still remember the bits that they did and how funny they were and how it was just different.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it was a hayride attraction.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of work into this hayride.
Uh-huh.
There's some seriously big builds on this. Some seriously crazy shit, like a helicopter and stuff. Mm-hmm. There's some nutty shit there. I remember that better than I remember those things.
Yeah.
Because it's what's stuck in my mind.
Exactly.
It's super memorable. And finally, it's also fun for the actors. Mm-hmm. Like, look, you probably have actors that love acting, they love being these characters, but maybe they're either not very good at getting scares, they're just not, they don't have their comedic timing, they don't have their scare timing down, rather.
Right.
Or it's not working. But they can do comedy, they can still get the reaction and still get that rush of, hey, I'm being responded to. Mm-hmm. People are reacting to me. I caused this. Mm-hmm. It's a very powerful emotion. And maybe they're not on the floor screaming and peeing themselves out of fear.
Right.
But it's still a very powerful reaction. Anyone who's ever told a joke and then did it really well and everyone laughed, that is the exact same adrenaline high that you get scaring people.
Yeah.
It really is. What's up? What are you thinking?
No, I was just thinking of if you had, the creepy child scene and the child just starts asking the why question. Like, everybody has had that experience with a kid that's under 5.
Oh, God.
Where it's just why, and every answer gets another why.
It should be a new rule that it is illegal to teach kids under the age of, say, 8 the word why.
Well, so
I don't care if it stunts their language skills. They shouldn't.
Well, it's not just that. It stunts their curiosity and a lot of other things.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, I'm not serious.
I know.
But
there's psychological reasons why kids ask why at that age. But having that inside of a haunt, I think, would just throw people off. Especially if they're customers like me who like to interact with the actors and respond. Because if they ask a question, I'm going to try to find the answer.
Yeah, that can definitely work, and it would definitely be very memorable. Uh-huh. And also, personally, because of the way I am with kids, I'd find it fucking scary, too, because me and kids don't get along particularly well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm fine with other people's kids. Yeah. But anyway, but it gives actors another chance to shine and another way to get a reaction, and it's fun. Mm-hmm. So, how to incorporate comedy. I really struggled with this section. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think trying to explain how you do it is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
Because I really do think everyone has different... I mean, obviously everyone has different taste in humor. But the easiest way I would incorporate it is I would find actors that are naturally funny and have good comedic timing. Mm-hmm. Not the same as haunt timing. Once again, people can have shit haunt timing,
right,
but have great comedic timing, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Timing, this is a very different skill set here. Mm-hmm. Knowing when to pop out or to scream or whatever to get a scare is very different than knowing when to drop the punchline on a joke.
Yeah.
These are very different skill sets. But yeah, create a scene and character where they can interact with guests, like Crystal's suggestion here of the why.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Or, like Hannibal Lecter, the scene where he's eating the brain.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the character that's doing the picking of the brain say, just picking his brain,
Yeah.
But then be terrifying right afterwards.
Yeah. But yeah, create scenes and characters that can interact with guests and create a gag that's repeatable. That would be a repeatable gag. For example, you've got a dummy or a person, depending on how you want to structure it, and eating the brains. And it's like, don't mind me, I'm just picking my friend's brain,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's a pretty easy gag to repeat. You can do that hundreds of times a night, no problem. That's one of the problems, is the gag has to be very, very repeatable for the actors. So you probably can't go too crazy with a lot of dialogue, and you can't go too crazy with like props and elements too. You've got to make this heavily repeatable. Like I know that Japes has talked about how he loves to use the tiny kitty electric chainsaw.
Yeah, little plastic thing.
It's just like it's barely like a foot long. It's nothing. And it makes a really cheesy noise.
My chainsaw?
Yeah, and he uses that gag. That's repeatable.
Yeah.
That's one of the keys. It has to be super repeatable, and just let things go and see what happens. Now, that said, you don't have to go full in like this. I don't want to talk about this too much, but you can include jokes in the design and detail of the haunt.
Right.
Very easily. Paint humorous names on crates. One of the classics of all time is the tombstone gag.
Right.
Where you have the humorous tombstones.
Yeah.
That's been going on forever.
I'm not sure if I've ever seen a graveyard without a humorous tombstone.
Yeah, I think Ripley's, believe it or not, may be like the place that really got its start. But I'd have to go back and check that. But it's been done forever. I mean, humorous tombstones are always going to go over. But yeah, just bear in mind, if you do this, not everyone's going to see them.
No, just the people paying attention.
And paying attention to the right things.
Yeah.
And as we have seen over and over and over again, no matter how hard you try to steer someone's attention, ultimately they're the decider of where they're looking. They can look straight up in the ceiling and be counting, your sprinkler heads or something.
I don't do that anymore. I don't look for... Well, I never counted the sprinkler heads, but I did look up often.
I look up semi-often.
Yeah.
Partly because I just like seeing how haunts are built.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way to figure out how a haunt's built, is to look straight up. I find, anyways. You can also include comedic elements in costume pieces. You can have fun with character or place names. You got a room or a house or a character. You can have fun with that. If you like puns... This is a great place to slip those in. But basically, almost anything can be a source of comedy, especially if you're wanting to be more subtle and more sly about it. Now, that said, if you're using humor tactically, that's one of the things we're talking about, you're going to want to go with the bigger, more in-your-face scare. Right. I mean, in-your-face humor. And the reason for that will become apparent in just a little bit. Now, so how to use is difficult to impossible to answer.
Right.
But when to use is much more answerable. Because the biggest and most important rule is don't overuse it.
Yeah.
I get it. When a joke works or comedy's going well, there's a temptation to put more in there. Like going back to the comedy scene we've had at the hayride, one of the reasons it stood out, that was the only comedy scene.
Yeah.
That was it.
And I don't think I've seen a comedy scene like that anywhere else, period.
It stands out so strongly to us because it was so rare. And so, and at first you get into them, okay, how are they going to try to scare us? Oh, this is funny. Should I be laughing? Then you can just go for the ride.
Yeah.
So, don't overuse it. This is meant to be in addition to fear, not the replacement. I think that's one of the problems a lot of haunters have with comedy and haunting, is that they think immediately that they're trying to turn the entire haunt into a joke, not use it strategically and tactically to improve the haunt, not to use it. So don't overuse it. Because one of the reasons you don't want to overuse it is because comedy actually wears out faster than fear.
Yeah.
It really does. Watch, that's especially true if the jokes are similar in style.
Right.
Here's the thing to do sometime. Watch an hour-long stand-up comedy special.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter. As long as it's someone you enjoy, watch the special. What you'll notice very quickly is that they're not telling jokes for a straight hour.
No. There's lots of story and interstitial.
There's story, there's interstitial, there's thinky bits, there's meandery bits.
Mm-hmm.
You can often go 5 to 10 minutes in a stand-up special easy without a punchline.
Right.
Without anything you're meant to laugh at. And a good example of this is Ron White's tater salad routine.
Mm-hmm.
It's 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's a meandering story that ends on a punchline. So you have 7 minutes without a real joke, other than,
mm-hmm.
laughing at the absurdity of things. No major punchline is dropped until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful piece of stand-up comedy. One of my favorite, one of the most memorable. And something that's damn near got me in trouble with the military.
Yeah. That's a story for another time.
Another time, that story. But yeah. But basically, you'll see how little comedy is in a stand-up comedy special. And it's kind of wild because it feels like it's 50 full minutes or 55 minutes or whatever, straight comedy. But believe me, there's going to be a lot of downtime.
Yeah. Because
people have to reset. Comedy wears people out. Don't overuse it. The first place I would look, personally, if I'm willing to integrate humor into a comedy look for scenes that are struggling to scare.
Yeah, because that there's that little hallway or that little awkward area that you can't do anything with. You haven't been able to make it work for years.
And you put your best people in there. You've done everything you can.
I'm thinking exactly of one specific place and one specific aunt.
Was it New Orleans Nightmare?
No.
Oh.
No, but that one too.
Because the room I'm talking about that was there. I don't think it's there anymore, but it was there.
No, I'm thinking the strobe light section at 13th Gate.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
this is a good one.
Because it's been there forever.
Yeah.
We've talked to them about why. We understand why.
Yeah.
But humor might be a place to try that.
Yeah, this might be your chance, because if it's not going to work, and oftentimes it's a layout issue.
Yeah.
With a room like the room I was thinking about, New Orleans Nightmare, back when it was House of Shock.
Mm-hmm.
There was a very bizarre room that had like a hairpin turn in it.
Yeah, because it was built in like shipping containers or something. So they had to arrange it so that you did a U-turn.
Yeah, and it was bizarre.
Yeah.
And it basically made the room completely unusable for scaring.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
It made it so that there was nothing they could do. There's no actor that's going to be able to save that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's nothing you can do. That space is completely unconducive to scaring. That would be a place I would look at. Or maybe it's just it's a room you need for the story you're telling or for the theme.
Mm-hmm.
But it just isn't working out. No matter who you put in it, no matter what you go for. Yeah, that's a good place to consider trying. Mm-hmm. That way, you're not giving up a scare.
Exactly, because it's already not scaring anybody.
If it's already failing and all efforts to save it have failed, that's what I think. Mm-hmm. Start there. However, if you're putting it in more tactically, I'd do it either right before or right after a big scare. And I'm trying to decide which I think is better.
I think right before.
I think right before is slightly better, because the idea is if you know that this scare is a big hit.
Yeah.
And that this scare always works. And like going to Rise for us, the double drop panel room, it always seems to hit.
Mm-hmm. If
the timing on it's good, that always hits. Every group I've been with in that haunt has popped for that.
Mm-hmm.
Do your humor right before and have them go into the room with the big scare, chuckling and laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Completely not paying attention to what's about to fall upon them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is about lowering shields. Basically, you're trying to make it so that people who are on edge, who are looking for the next scare, who are heightened awareness, stop being so goddamn heightenedly aware.
Yeah.
And you can disarm them with humor. It's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Give their brain a little what the fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, so before a scare ensures that their shields are down going into the scare.
Right.
Or if you've had an issue where there's a big scare and then the next one or two aren't hitting.
Right.
Because they're still so shaken and stirred from that one, then putting a joke after it to set as a spacer for that might help.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But a key rule here is do not make it the first or last room in a haunt, definitely.
No.
These rooms are the two most memorable. We always talk about how every haunt, there are 3 rooms that get remembered. Mm-hmm. There's the first room, there's the last room, and there's whatever really stole the show on the inside.
Yeah, exactly.
3 rooms will get remembered. And the first and the last ones will.
Yeah, and that's why we have so much problem with just putting a chainsaw person at the end.
Yeah.
That's why that doesn't work for us.
No, it doesn't work for me at all. I mean...
because we see that too many times as the last room.
Yeah, but like I said, it was evil intentions messed with us.
Yeah.
They had chainsaw guys, and they looked like a final room, but no sirree, Bob, it was not the final room.
That's because every final chainsaw room is a hallway with a person chasing you.
Yeah. But no, they made it seem like they were done, and we were not even at the halfway point.
Yeah. And in fact, there was one place that we saw a chainsaw used with humor.
Yeah.
And up in Shreveport I can't remember the name of the haunt now, and I don't think it's open anymore, but they had somebody trying to fix a chainsaw. And the entire way through, you could hear them muttering and like,
damn thing will turn over.
Yeah. And then at the very end,
and that was the home haunt we went to.
That wasn't a home haunt. It
was a trail haunt, though.
No.
No. Oh, you're talking about necromancer.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But yeah, that was the best way I've seen a chainsaw used, and it was with a little bit of humor added in.
Yeah, and that worked. It worked, and seeing him struggle, because you see a chainsaw or you hear a chainsaw at any point in a haunted house, you kind of know what's coming. Anyone with 2 brain cells to click together does, at least.
Yeah.
But having him do that,
maybe it was Necromancer.
I think it was Necromancer. I think it was. But having him do that disarmed it.
Yeah.
It's like, they're just, okay, he's just a broken chainsaw. So that way when the actual chainsaw came into play,
right,
it was a little bit more of a surprise.
Yeah.
And part of it was, like you said, the humor about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't make it the first or the last rooms in a haunt. Don't in the comedy room, obviously. Don't make it that. And obviously don't take away any of your big, super effective scares.
Mm-mm.
And also just don't overuse it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that makes comedy in a haunted house stand out so much is that it is so rare.
Yeah. I
would say if you've got a haunt with a 20-minute walkthrough, 1 to 2 rooms is the most you can really get away with. 1 to 2 scenes.
Yeah. Well, and like James's character is a line actor.
He's Q line. And you can do more with the Q line than you can do inside.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you get the people in the Q line laughing and relaxing, then whenever they get inside, that first scare is going to hit them harder.
Yeah, that's true. And that's one of the things about the old House of Shock, the way they used to do it. I always found kind of frustrating a little bit because they were working very hard to scare and intimidate and all. There was no humor, almost no humor, no levity out in the Q line. Everything, even this objectively silly stuff, was played totally straight.
There were a few jokes in the stage show.
Yeah, in the stage show, they eventually did add some toward the end of that. Yeah, but no, it was a thing where it's like everybody is already terrified of you. Mm-hmm. All you're doing is constantly raising that tension and making your job inside the haunt harder.
Yeah,
I agree that Q-line actors should do scares, absolutely, but they also should be disarming and charming and funny and engaging.
There should be a variety, just like inside the haunt.
Yeah, but here outside I think you could do more comedy than you can do inside.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. But yeah, don't overuse it and keep, comedy scenes away from other comedy scenes if you do multiple. Now, there are some precautions here. First, make sure your humor is not offensive.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I should have to say this, but we all know I do.
Yeah. I know.
Comedy is so easy to do wrong. And So it's very tempting, especially with the nature of haunted attractions, to lean into stereotype jokes. One of the reasons stereotypes are so heavily featured in haunted attractions, I mean, what could be, whether it's the voodoo priest, the hillbilly character, whatever, the reason they're so common is because it's shorthand.
Yeah.
You fill in the backstory about this character just by seeing, the hillbilly in overalls.
Yeah, it's the Cliff Notes version of haunting instead of building your own story.
Yeah, exactly. But trying to tell a joke in this environment where you might only have customers in a room for 10 seconds, that makes the temptation to lean hard onto stereotype jokes.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. We've seen it. We had an incident where we had a moment where one haunt, the cue line actor leaned really hard into rape humor.
Yeah.
That didn't upset me, and it didn't seem to upset the others in line, but I could see that going sideways so quickly when you've got someone who's legit traumatized from sexual assault.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was not good.
It was not good. And also it got very boring.
Well, and I also saw, I think that person was supposed to be scary. Never mind. They just weren't. They were just offensive.
Yeah. Just basically, don't give in to that temptation. Find jokes like the pick his brain.
Yeah.
That one is not going to be a stereotype joke.
No.
That is literally just a pun.
I got a bone to pick with you and come after him with a bone.
You can do jokes that don't lean on stereotypes. Seriously, just don't. Because then the main thing is, if the humor is offensive, and someone who it is offensive toward goes through the haunt, I guarantee it's the only thing they're going to remember. You can fuck them remembering 3 rooms.
Yeah.
They ain't going to remember shit other than that. Nope. And they're going to make sure everyone else knows. So, don't do it. Don't do it. Personally, I think if possible, make the joke big and obvious. You kind of take the same approach we take with scares. Because we always try to make the scares very big, very obvious. What's going on? You can't ignore this scare. Make it impossible to ignore. Now, you can't do this for your little hidden gags here and there, but still, it should be obvious and punchy, and go a little over the top with it. The point is, you have to make it clear it's meant to be laughed at. People are in an environment where they are programmed to be afraid.
Right.
We don't want them to be afraid for these few seconds.
No.
We have to let them know it's okay to laugh and make it clear. What's up?
Exactly.
You got that look in your eye again.
Sorry, I'm just having so many comedic ideas. I was thinking instead of a room of the dummies, that are stationary, do the waving wacky inflatable arm guys, and then have somebody in one of the costumes.
I think the only possible problem with that I see is I don't know how well that works in close proximity to customers. That's an interesting idea.
I know. I'm sorry. It popped in my brain and made me laugh.
And I can see why. Yeah, but basically, though, if you're going to go for a laugh, don't be subtle. Don't try to be stealthy about it.
Right.
Watch for responses. Watch how people are reacting to it.
Yeah.
Because this is crucial. You're going to have to watch carefully. Because if customers are not responding to it favorably, or even worse yet, not responding to it at all,
right?
You may need to pivot to something. Maybe you can switch. It's kind of like how when a room isn't working for a scare, and we realize we're not getting the reactions we want, pivot. A good actor, especially, will pivot and try to find a different approach, and we'll think about the room in a different way. And that's one thing that I noticed every haunt does rely on to some degree.
Right. Is that if it's just not working, then
you need to have an actor that can pivot.
Actors freedom. Yeah.
You need to give the actors the freedom to do it, and they need to be able to do it. They need to, A, be cognizant of the problem.
Yeah.
And B, able to think about, okay, what can I do different?
Yeah.
And it works. But you won't be able to listen for the screams or the howls. You won't have people falling floored. Because even when people are laughing, the cues that they're laughing is often very subtle compared to when they're fright reacted.
Right. Yeah, and and it might just be small little chuckles or little smiles because their guards are still mostly up.
Yeah, my advice is to look at people's faces.
Yeah.
Are they smiling?
Yeah.
If they're smiling, you're probably on the right path.
Yeah, and you won't have to do this the entire season.
No.
Just long enough to figure out whether or not it's getting the reaction you want.
Exactly. Because if the humor isn't working, you need to pivot fast.
Yeah.
This is way worse than a scare not landing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is nothing more sad than a joke that just falls flat.
Yeah.
Humor unfulfilled is one of the greatest the greatest form of tragedy. It's truly sad. And because here's the thing, like even someone that's very scary and easily scared, going through a haunt, they're probably only going to be really got by half or so of the scares.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast. Your batting average with scares is never going to be 1,000, and that's understood. Mm-hmm. Your batting average with jokes needs to be as close to a fucking 1,000 as you can get it.
Yeah.
It really does, because a scare not landing, you're moving on to the next one. A joke not landing or a piece of humor not landing, that's death. Mm-hmm. That is what death looks like. So yeah, and if humor isn't working in your haunt, don't use it.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally wish more haunts would include it, and I think more haunts would benefit from it than currently do it.
Yeah.
But if it's not working for you, if it's not getting the laughs, if it's not getting the response, and it's not helping support your other rooms and your other scares, mm-hmm. don't do it. It's not right for every haunt. And instead, go back to the stuff we talked about in all those episodes ago about pacing, working breaks, working some downtime. That can have the same impact. It takes a little longer.
Yeah.
Because you got to give people enough time for their biology to settle down.
Exactly.
Which if you got a good, because some people, they get adrenaline and that's where they sit all day. They're like a 5-year-old on 10 cups of coffee, just ping-ponging around for the rest of the day. They never come down. Most people will come down, but it takes time. Give them time. Give them a chance to, return to a neutral position.
Right. And I think that, it's, a lot of haunts don't do it because it is a harder medium to work with.
It really is. I will agree with that. It is very difficult to do well. Mm-hmm. And the risk versus reward is admittedly not as good with scares, mm-hmm. because, the risk is very high. Jokes that don't land are murder. They really are. If you ever go to an open mic comedy night, mm-hmm. go to anyone you can find in your area, someone there is going to die a miserable fucking death on stage. I can guarantee you right now.
Yeah.
Watch how horrible it is and how awkward it is for you in the audience. Mm-hmm. It is truly miserable.
Yeah.
And that's what your customers will be experiencing if the humor fails.
Right. It's
just not good. It's murder. A scare that fails, there's another one in 10 feet, Mm-hmm. Not a big deal. A joke that fails, So yeah, the risk versus reward is higher too. But if you can do it and do it right, it is such a valuable asset. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so to quickly recap here, humor, comedy, it can be a wonderful tool. As you said, it's harder.
Right.
And the risk is higher.
Yeah.
Definitely, because like I said, death, a joke that doesn't land hurts. It hurts the audience.
I still think it would reset the audience, though.
Yeah, and it might still succeed in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it hurts. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It really, really does. But yeah, it needs to be used sparingly. I would not do more than 1 or 2 things in a haunt, and I would put those either in rooms that are already struggling and just can't work for scares. That way, you're not losing any space or any scares.
Right.
Or if you get your pick of the litter and you're going to play it tactically, right before your biggest, bestest, most awesomest, most consistentest scare is where I would put it. Failing that, right after.
Yeah.
To let people calm down. But yeah, it needs to be positioned in a way that supports the scares, not replaces them. And yeah, you got to watch this closely. And I mean, I'll say this: like we go back to the scene with the fox and the bird that we were remembering. We were not the only ones laughing our asses off of that.
No,
the whole fucking car, the whole hayride car was laughing over it. It was great. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I do think it made the next scene more effective.
I do too.
I really do, because we all had this left, and then we realized, hey, we really don't know for certain what's coming up next.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because if you can throw this curveball at me, what the hell are they going to do in the next scene?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, think of it like throwing a changeup in the middle of a batter, session.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's all we have for right now. I hope at least some of this was thought-provoking.
Mm-hmm.
I really wish we could have found a way to talk better about the how. But honestly, talking about the how of comedy is probably one of the greatest challenges ever attempted.
Yeah, well, and it's going to be different for every haunt.
Exactly.
Because every haunt is different. So there's probably a way to work it in.
But
you just got to look for it.
Yeah. Just figure it out and figure out what works for you. And also, talk to your actors about it. I mean, I'm sure you've got at least a couple of actors that are just dead funny. Mm-hmm. And they know it and you know it. Talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Get ideas from them. It's amazing how you can make that work. But anyways, on that note, everyone, thank you very much for spending the past 50 or so minutes with us. Greatly appreciate it. Hope it was thought-provoking. You can find more Haunt Weekly at hauntweekly.com, Haunt Weekly on Twitter, Haunt Weekly on Facebook, youtube.com/Haunt Weekly is the YouTube channel. Those are audio-only podcasts, but they are all there, and it is a great, easy way to access everything. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts from, as long as the referral keeps working.
Yeah.
So Google Play, Apple Podcasts, all those places. All the places you go. We should be there. But until next time, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Crystal.
And we will see you all next week with episode 340. It means it's time to do
the news.
And we actually have news.
Mm.
We've been in the news. We'll be talking about juggalos next week, at least briefly. I'm not actually making that up. We will.
I know.
I'm not kidding.
I saw the story.
We'll see y'all then.